SciByte is produced by Jupiter Broadcasting, independent entertainment that's live and always on demand. Hi everyone, and welcome to SciByte, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly science show. We recorded this one live on February 7th for release on February 8th, 2012. That's a Wednesday. My name is Chris, and joining us like every single week is Heather. Hey Heather.
Hello there, Chris.
Hey, happy science to you.
Happy science.
So what do we have coming up on the show today?
Today we're going to take a look at a planet orbiting another star that could harbor water, a fungus that chows down on polyurethane, turning plants into solar cells, the science of massage, tracking snow, and as always, take a peek back into history and up in the sky this week.
Well, that sounds pretty exciting. Now, we should warn people, though, who tune in live that next week we're going to go off schedule. We'll be live one day early on Monday, so that way we have Valentine's Day available.
That's right.
Because we understand the science of relationships, too, and the fact that not doing a show during Valentine's Day is particularly good science for relationships.
Yes.
So just a warning to folks to expect the show to be moved to the 13th next week. So don't come on Tuesday looking for us. So there you go. Well, okay. Heather, I mean, we've got a ton of stuff to get into today. We've got a lot of news. We've got a big news bite section too. Do you want to just jump right into our very first story today? Sure.
Scientists have used public data from the European Space Observatory, from the Keck Observatory, from the Eshel spectrograph in Carnegie, a whole bunch of different things. They combined all this data from 3 of these ground-based telescopes, went back 10 years of data, analyzed it with some new data processing methods, came up with a signal for a planet. Now, what's interesting is this is a star that's much dimmer and redder from our own, with a chemical makeup completely different from ours. And the interior, we don't know what's going on with the planet, but it's in the spot that it could harbor water on its surface. It's about 4.5 times as massive as the Earth. Shoots around its sun about every 28 days, which, if it was in our solar system, would essentially mean that all the water on the surface of the planet would boil off.
Oh.
But because the star's incoming light is mainly in the infrared, and a higher percentage of it would be absorbed by the planet. So it receives about 90% of the light that Earth receives, but about the same amount of energy.
Huh. Okay.
So the surface temperatures...
And you mentioned this was 4.5 times larger, so it's 4.5 times larger, but still receives about the same amount of light energy.
Yeah. So the surface temperatures end up being about that of Earth, which means liquid water could potentially be formed. Now, none of this is really confirmed. You know, some of the size information, we still need a little bit more data on it. They're not sure what the planet's composition is. They're not even sure whether it's rocky or a gas planet.
Oh,
so they have various, at various radiuses, then they'd be able to guess whether it's rocky or gaseous. And we haven't seen it directly yet. So we've just seen the dimming of the star, the wobble of the star. But
it's funny because in the news, this has kind of been reported as a possible Earth, like every headline I read about this said it is a new super Earth. Nobody mentioned we didn't know if it was a gas giant or not. At least in the attention-grabbing headline.
Well, yeah, it's an attention-grabbing headline. That's why you go to SciByte, because you get the real news.
That's true. Good point. That's right.
Our own
distraction-free news.
That's right.
It's also like it's relatively close, right? 22 or something like that light years?
22 light years away. Bad. There's only 100 stars closer to us than this one.
Yeah, so, that's not bad.
No. Well, that's the thing.
It might as well be 10 light years. Not like it makes much difference for us right now.
Well, yeah, right now. But that's the difference between, the Kepler Space Telescope is finding all these planets, planet after planet, weird ones in weird places. But the ground-based telescope discoveries are the ones that are much closer, because that's all they can see. But it's interesting for the people that really want it close enough, because they say, hey, once we have the capability, we could shoot off a little probe probe postcard and shoot it off in that direction and see what happens.
Right. Sure.
And maybe in a long time, we'll get pictures back of the little aliens like glaring at our probe, hopping on board to come back.
I kind of fantasize about this sort of being the ideal situation. If it was Earth-like and it's larger than Earth, then not only is it another planet we could live on, but it's a resources upgrade in theory too. If it's 4.5 times the size, there's 4.5 more places to live, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like double excited for me, and the fact that it's not like 100 light years away too almost makes it sound reasonable.
Yeah. Now it says 4.5 times the size. Now, the size of a sphere, the diameter versus the surface area, it doesn't change exactly the same. So there's some of that you have to take into consideration. And the fact that, we don't know if this is a giant gas ball, like Uranus or something. But another interesting thing about this place is that this whole solar system, the whole star, has a much lower abundance of heavy elements. So like iron, carbon, silicon, all that kind of stuff it's really low in it. So this is another one of those situations where we had no idea and didn't expect a planet to be around this kind of a system, and yet it is.
Why didn't we expect it to be around this kind of system?
Because it didn't have, like I said, it didn't have the heavier elements without iron and carbon and silica and any of that.
I see. It's kind of like if you have one, you're in the other kind of a situation. Okay.
Yeah, whether it just had the lighter elements that it couldn't really form up planets per se.
Right. Yeah, it didn't have like the building block stuff it needed. Okay.
Yeah.
What I also kind of find really interesting about this is that the scientist, like you mentioned, the first point you made about this story is the scientist. It's not like this is a brand new discovery based on like new scans and new photos. This is a new discovery based on old data, which is, again, always fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about last week how they're digitizing all these astronomical plates, glass plates. And it's this kind of data where you go back far enough and you can kind of squeeze more data out of it. Where you're like, there's actually this here. Or people have used it to discover, or kind of quote unquote discover meteors or asteroids, should I say. So they can see something moving, plate to plate to plate, and then see, this is going here. If that was going this way, then, sort of plot out an orbit, see if they can catch it somewhere else in the sky. So there's always kind of things where they're looking at one thing and then maybe they can get something else. I mean, even now with the computer analysis, they don't catch everything. There's all these various online things where you can go and just random people can go and help say, this is a star, this is a rock, this is this kind of a star, this is a galaxy of this type. Because even with all the computer analysis we have now, the human eye is still a lot better for just kind of eyeballing things and identifying them.
That's wild.
So there's all sorts of, extra data in this kind of pictures. And Hubble itself has so much back data. And there's a whole bunch of data from all these telescopes, and they just put it out and they're like, this person was looking for this, they found it, hey, everyone else look at it, see if you find your own thing.
Another it's a topic we'd brought up on the show before. I'd asked you, like, what does NASA share? What information does NASA give out to the other nations' space agencies? And in this case, they used a large set of the European Southern Observatory data. So if the European Space Agency hadn't made this data available, then they wouldn't have been able to get to this. So again, it goes back to, I think, how fundamentally it is important that as these discoveries are made in space, and how in the future they're going to be made by commercial companies, how I think it's still really important that these commercial companies share their findings and share their data, which I don't think they're going to be inclined to do for competitive reasons, but obviously for discoveries like this, there's a pretty big public interest.
Oh, well, yeah. And I'm sure there's been some people who've decided, I'm not going to patent this or keep this secret because I think it's for the betterment or the safety of lots of people. But there are a great deal of telescopes and observatories that release maybe not all the data, but they probably release a chunk of data. And it also may be that they have to ask the person who took it. It's like, hey, can we put this on the giant server for everyone to check out? They're like, yeah, sure. No, not really. I want my pictures. So
right.
Maybe that in like some places.
I always love these stories. I always love the Habitable Planet stuff and the stuff that's kind of a little surprising. So that's always a good one. Do you have any other thoughts on this story?
No, it's just kind of that where it's one of these that it's possibly, probably in the right area, but we don't know all the details. And then every major media outlet says, "Ooh, what was that? Some subline that said this? Awesome! Run the presses."
The science blogs are getting as bad as the gadget blog with that kind of stuff, where they'll just throw anything out there just to get the clicks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we continue on, then, I would like to take a brief moment. And we typically here on SciByte have a sponsor at this moment. We're down this week with no sponsors, but we have something in the works. So in the meantime, I want to mention our donation page over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate. Now, all of the content we make over at Jupiter Broadcasting is free for everybody, and I only encourage folks to donate who have considered themselves to have had some sort of value in Jupiter Broadcasting's programming. Really, what your donations do is they help us be selective about the advertisers we choose, because we're still going to go out and try to find advertising, because that's really what pays the bills. The sponsorships are sort of big ticket items. The donations help us get through the periods where we don't have sponsors, or let us be picky about the sponsors we do take on. So anybody who visits jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate and donates and leaves a little message, their message will also automatically show up on the donation wall. We set up Angela and Alan worked on a really great automatic script now that when people leave their note, it can show up on the wall. And I encourage everybody to go in there, leave their note, and maybe even their website, and give themselves a little plug. Also, it's just good SEO for your site too, because you can see there's all kinds of people who have done it now, so you might as well give yourself a little something as well. So thanks for everybody who does that. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate. Also, just a quick service reminder that if you go to the very, very, very bottom of any Jupiter Broadcasting site, it could be any page you're at, you go to the very bottom and we have links that you can click on that make it super crazy easy to shop from Amazon or Newegg, ThinkGeek, Best Buy, Mint.com, or Audible, and give a portion of your shopping session to Jupiter Broadcasting. And that also helps a bunch. So thanks to everybody who does that. All right, Heather, let's move on with the SciByte News Bite. What do we have first in the News Bite today?
All right. We have fungi that chows down on polyurethane.
Hungry fungi.
Yeah. This is the kind of stuff that it's a synthetic polymer developed in the 40s, and they've used it to replace rubber and paint and wood and a wide variety of things. Now, some of it can be recycled, but this is one of those things that ends up in the landfill, and they say it's non-biodegradable. It'll sit there forever and ever and ever because nothing can metabolize it. Nothing will digest it. Everything thinks it's gross. It's like the spinach of the microbe world.
Ah, the spinach.
Well, some people like spinach.
Popeye might disagree with you on that one.
Yeah. Well, this fungi is definitely the Popeye of fungi. So, oh man, that was great.
Yeah.
that was very natural.
That was good. I liked that. Yeah. Except for the part where you pointed it out. After that, it kind of went off the rails.
Yeah. I was so proud of myself. Okay. I had to pause science.
You know what you get for that? You get I have this saved up just for when you have a moment like this. It's been you've definitely earned it. There you go.
Good ding.
You get a ding. Or actually, I have a correct jingle too. There you go. All right. So tell me about this.
Okay. Every year, Yale University operates a rainforest expedition. So they send out a group of students and professors and stuff. And they go down, and in the summer break or in the spring recess, they go down and they collect a whole bunch of samples. One group collected this, and I'm sorry, scientists of this particular persuasion, Pestiliotopis microspora fungus.
Whoa.
I butchered that, and I'm sorry. It was found in Ecuador, but it not only eats polyurethane, which nothing else really does, but it can survive on a diet of only polyurethane. And it can do that even in an oxygen-starved environment.
What is there in polyurethane that something could live off of?
I'm not entirely sure what this thing likes about it.
Poison?
Apparently it likes poison. But it's interesting because you can kind of sprinkle this on I guess you can sprinkle this on a landfill, and it'll just, even under under all the stuff that we don't want to think about, where it's not a lot of oxygen, it could chow down there too.
Interesting.
Now, there have been other microorganisms that can degrade it, in various forms, but this is the first one that's been able to survive only on that no matter what kind of oxygen levels there are.
This is not the same thing, but I have been researching vermin. I forget what they call it, but basically it's red worm composting. And the whole point is you build this compost where the specific type of worm helps you, convert it into soil faster and takes out all the stinkiness, because they eat the exact bits that would normally break down and stink and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of the same concept where you build a certain type of compost and then you infest it with worms intentionally so that way they go to work. So you could take these guys and like you said, like mix them with water or something and just spray them on top of a pile of polyurethane stuff and let them go to town and see if they eat it up.
Yeah. These, like you were saying, that and these fungi, any type of natural degradation of waste products, bioremediation. So it's all has a really cool name.
Yeah.
Well, if you think bioremediation is a cool name.
Yeah. I like that name. Well, there you go. And of course, people are interested in that. Heather always has links to all of these stories in the show notes. You just go to jupiterbroadcasting.com, look for SciByte 32, if you can believe that. We've done 32 of these things. And in there, you'll have the links. But yeah. Any other thoughts on that story?
No, it's just kind of an interesting one that I'd kind of throw out there to everybody.
Oh, yeah. And I'm curious to see where that goes, too, because that could be major. Yeah. This next story... it's kind of interesting the way you have it titled. I used to work with a company who produced solar panels. I think they'd be very interested in solar panels that you water. What's this?
So let's take a step back here. The inside of plants, the parts that carry out photosynthesis are called photosystem I, or PSIs.
Okay.
Now, scientists at MIT have harvested those structures, stabilized them, put them on a layer of glass, like photovoltaic cells are now, and they were able to produce a current with just light shining on it, just with the plant parts. Now,
that's fancy.
Originally it required a sophisticated lab, and it was really kind of complicated, and it wasn't very efficient. But now there's been a process that simplifies it, so it's much easier for a lab to replicate. So it kind of simplified it down so researchers all around the world that maybe didn't have as sophisticated a lab as there are in some first world countries, that a lot more people can sort of work on it and maybe work on improving it as much as they can. So kind of everybody can sort of open source this and incrementally improve it.
Wow. They've
already improved it like 10,000 times over, although it still only converts like 0.1% of the sunlight. But I mean, all it would have to do is reach 1 or 2%, and it would be useful.
It'd be limited, but it would be useful.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. But
the holy grail is something more like 90% utilization, isn't it?
Well, yeah. But this is something that is so living off the earth, that it could be any raw plant material. So, I mean, they're doing it now, so it's like centrifuges can concentrate the molecules. There are tests going on to see if you could do it with just filtering it. So, I mean, in some future day, their hope is, remote off-the-grid locations, take a bag, take some grass clippings or leaves or something that's green, mix it in with water, paint it on a roof, voila, you produce power.
Oh, that. Right, you cover the whole dang roof.
Yep.
That's a solar party.
Yeah, that's a solar panel roof. It's green, and it allows a whole bunch more people to be able to access this. I mean, even if it's not it doesn't produce a lot of power, or it's not very effective.
Think of like the roof surface area of a mall.
Oh yeah.
Right, or like something like that, where it's kind of a long spread out building with a flat roof. I mean, that'd be awesome.
Or think of these remote locations in second or third world countries, or even remote locations in first world countries where every little bit of power helps. I worked at an observatory in college that there was no power lines to the observatory. It was at the top of a mountain. It was, a preserve kind of around it. You couldn't run lines up to it. So they had some solar panels and battery banks, and they just kind of kept the batteries warm and, tried to soak up every little bit of energy they could from the solar panels. So what if you could, in addition to that, paint, the outside of the dome or, various roofs around to get a little bit extra power? And that would definitely help.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of a principle that Brian, from the Linux Action Show, he has a RV that has, I believe, 2 solar panels on top that come down to a battery. And, he has like this, he has an RV that they would drove around for like their honeymoon and stuff. And he can use it for whatever he wants, to do. But if he wants to like supply power to a TV, to a radio, or like a computer for a few hours, they've got this battery backup bank that's just enough just to run some essentials, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like they don't need a ton of power. They don't have to power everything in the RV. They just need to power a couple of things, and it's perfect for that.
Yeah. The idea is, take the power, bank it up. I mean, at the observatory, it was stored up because you're using most of your power at night when there's not a lot of sun. So you want to kind of save up the power from here and use it there. So that's kind of, as you were saying, Brian could kind of, save up the power and then use a whole bunch of it in a short period of time, or kind of eke it out, if it starts to get cloudy.
It's pretty neat. That could be massive. This could be, a couple of big things that could be coming in the works. Stuff that eats polyurethane and super green solar panels.
Yeah.
I mean, if solar energy wasn't green already.
Yeah, even greener.
What's greener than green? Real green. Okay. Yep. Any other thoughts on this story?
In this case, it is easy being green.
I should mention, too, for people listening to the audio-only version, we have links to a video where they kind of go through some of this stuff. I played parts of it here in the visual version that goes along with this episode, but links to that in the show notes. All right. Should we move on?
Yes.
All right. So this one is, you're speaking my language tonight, Heather. I'd love to hear about the science of massage.
Yes. And we know, a lot of people know strenuous exercise kind of tears the muscle fibers. It's considered normal, generally heals fine. It's been said in the past that massages, release the lactic acid from sore muscles. But there's not been a whole bunch of scientific studies into the details of this, of why massages, help make your muscles feel better. Now, they have done a study now that says there's actual chemical signals going on that have to do with inflammation and muscle repair.
Oh.
So these are researchers that took 11 healthy young men, had them cycle to exhaustion. One leg was randomly selected to get massaged. Now you might think, hey, massage, great. Not quite. They had tissue samples taken every 10 minutes.
Oh, tissue samples?
They had a couple of tissue samples taken, so...
Ooh, yuck, ouch.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very comfortable.
No.
But it was a very clear 30% difference in the levels of 2 key proteins. One that reduces inflammation, and the other that generates cell growth. So they've actually have, cellular proof that it's reducing it. Massages can reduce inflammation. It generates cell growth, so it's kind of repairing your muscles. And this kind of a study is actually letting traditional mainstream medical fields, who have often dismissed it, say, no, that's kind of baloney. Now they're looking back at it and go, and everyone who believes in massages kind of holds his data out and goes, yeah, see, science.
Boy, I think the best thing that could come out of this is to have insurance companies. Some already do, but to have the ones that don't cover massage step up.
Yeah, where that's one of the ideas is, if there's with scientific proof, could you get, an actual massage therapy, handed to you as a script? You have physical therapy, maybe aquatic therapy. This is a different type of therapy. And it is actually doing something at a cellular level.
I guess I never really, it seems like obviously the results of massage would just speak for themselves in terms of pain relief and things like that. But to actually see these kind of results with actual tissue samples, which is extremely hardcore. You
Yeah.
know what? Actually, it reminds me of a recent big study they did on meditation, and they did brain imaging on people during meditation, before meditation, and after meditation. And they found that long-term meditators could actually, they would send repeat signals down certain synapses in their brain, and they would actually sort of like be clearing the lanes and would make these pathways stronger. And now they're going to take those findings, and they're going to go into Alzheimer's research and do things like that.
Ooh.
It's amazing, you know, when we take our instruments that we have today, and we look at practices that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we find that they have some sound science in them. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you pull a muscle and you can't help but kind of rub it. You know, it's that natural inclination, and that's it's kind of like a first step. What's funny about this is I read this whole study came from a scientist who had a bad hamstring injury. And he went in and he got him, he didn't think of it. He was trying everything and he got a massage. He's like, wow, that helps a lot. I should study this and figure out why. It created a whole study.
I love that.
Wow, this works. I wonder why. Let's make a scientific study.
Only a scientist, right? I mean, other people would just be like, yeah, okay, well, that kind of
cool.
Makes
That
sense,
works. I should do it again.
Yeah, right.
I was like, I identify with that. I'm like, why does this work? Let's find out.
Well, this is the part of the show where everybody needs to take the info from the show notes and forward it on to their boss and tell their boss, hey, boss, I got to take some time off and go get a massage. It'll make me a better worker. Things like that.
Yes. Be like, I'm stressed out. My arm can't type. I need a massage to reduce the inflammation so I can type more. And do work.
I wish I had some sort of cool story, but these last few nights I've been hurting my back when I sleep like an old man, and I thought, a massage would be great. All right, well, any other thoughts on this story?
No, it's a good excuse. Science to the rescue this time.
That's right. All right, did I wake you up there? Did I scare you a little bit? It's time to move on. We're going to talk about watching snowfall from space. Sounds romantic.
Yeah. So
it's a good Valentine's Day story.
Yeah. We can track rain fairly well from space, you know, kind of track where it is, when it is, how much is falling. Those raindrops are nice and spherical and very, you know, repetitive. Snowflakes, however, as anyone who lives in a snowy area knows, they come in about 10,000 different ways. The soft, fluffy kind, the hard, wet kind, you know, the little tiny flecks that hit you in the face like little slaps. So all these different shapes and sizes make it really hard for these satellites to track it accurately.
Oh, makes sense.
So there's a new satellite going up, whole grid that's going up, and it's going to be able to track global snowfall precipitation better than ever before. So I mean, they will have a short period of calibration, so they'll be able to see this kind of, you know, information means this kind of snow. This kind of, you know, data means this kind of snow. So they'll be able to get back enough data so that they can accurately measure all these different types of snow. And
it's interesting though, because are you saying kind of in a roundabout way that you said there's going to be a spin up time? Is that because they don't exactly know what those different conditions look like, so they first have to witness them to then know what they are once they do observe them? Is there going to be like a period where they're sort of training the instrumentation and training the observers, kind of a thing? Am I making sense there?
Yeah, you are. Well, yeah, this is going to be the first times that we can accurately measure it, that we can get the data coming back, but it's, you know, static coming at us. So we have to be able to identify this bit of static means this kind of snow. This bit of static means that kind of snow. And once you identify all those different things, then once the data comes in, you know, you can identify the data packets. Say, this one goes over there. This one goes over there. This is all the different types of snow, how much it happened, when it happened, and where it happened. And so all these different kinds of things where the other parts of this satellite network are tracking rain. This one can track snow. And all these different things together can tell us total precipitation all over the entire world. So you can get insights into how storms are, how they form, large-scale atmospheric processes, how things are affected on a global scale, on a local scale. And all this kind of understanding, of course, gets us better predictions too. So the more you monitor, the more data you have, the better you can predict when it's going to happen more accurately. So maybe you can forecast floods and droughts and landslides and how bad a snowstorm is actually going to be. Because sometimes the weatherman says, nothing, and you wake up with a foot of snow on your car. And sometimes
we all know that one.
And sometimes they say it's the end of the world, and you walk out, and you're like, kick, and you've exposed the grass.
I find this interesting because, so it's a joint project between NASA and other nations, but this is really one of those day-to-day, activities that NASA's involved in that I don't really associate with NASA, but is extremely useful. You know what I mean? It's a very mundane thing for NASA, but also critical.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is one of those times where NASA has a lot of what they call spin-off technology. And leading up to the Super Bowl, the NASA Twitter was just going all crazy like, hey, there's a whole bunch of spin-off technology that's going to be on the field during your Super Bowl. Here's a link. Check it out. So there's all these things that they've created and done that's kind of been able to switch into the private sector. The one that everyone throws out is computers, how much they shrunk. And things of that nature. So it's one of these things that they have a lot of stuff going on, and some of it just spins off to get a lot of different data.
Right. Yeah. That's what's great about, honestly, I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but it is kind of what's great about having NASA be a publicly ran organization. I'm just saying, because all of those innovations did make it back into the public sector. Now, maybe a private company would, just at a grander time scale. I don't know. I'm not really a historian enough to know if that's happened. But interesting. Well, now we'll know. Hopefully soon we'll have better snow forecasts, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to, I noticed you had a spot here to do some honorable mentions. Do you want to jump
these
to that?
are some interesting stories, but they're more visual, but it's kind of fresh news that I thought I'd mention.
Oh, yeah,
There is the first video of the far side of the moon. Now, a lot of people may know that we did a lot of pictures from the far side of the moon from the Apollo era. They didn't really have any video capabilities so much. Now, we've talked about the Grail instruments before, the 2 moon probes that went up, and they're going to check out, try to probe the inside of the moon and what it's doing. And the students named the 2 ones Ebb and Flow. And from them orbiting the moon, we've actually got like an actual video of it as it kind of rolls by.
That's awesome. I'm looking at it right now. It's great. This is great.
Yeah, it's interesting because
look at that surface detail, huh? Look at the detail on that.
And it's kind of cool because you're like, you look at these kind of things and you look at pictures and you're like, that's cool. And then you realize, oh, wait, that's the moon. It's just different from we ever see.
Looks like that Ebb and Flow is going to be giving us all kinds of goodies for a while, isn't it? Do you know, are those ever leaving orbit? Will they just run for quite a while?
I think they'll just run for quite a while.
That's awesome. So we're just going to get years and years of awesome stuff from these things.
Yeah, I don't know how many years that they're planning. If I recall, they're solar paneled. They're solar powered. And so I believe if I recall correctly, there is a solar, where the Earth will block the light from the sun.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if I remember, we covered earlier in almost a month ago on SciByte. I think we covered some of those details. So there you go. People can probably dig around and find that.
With the lack of power from the sun, then they may or may not survive that. And so there may be depends on how long they last, will really depend upon how much sun they get. Like, some of the Mars rovers that we've talked about. It's all about what happens to the solar panels.
Right. If they get dusty. Thankfully, there's no dust in space. Well, there's dust, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, not a lot of dust. Then you just get things in between you and the sun.
Like alien spacecrafts.
Sure.
Yeah,
or Earth.
Yeah, okay.
If you count the Earth as an alien spacecraft.
You also have an honorable mention in here for Stephen Colbert for the Colbert Report.
Yeah, he actually made a PSA for NASA. I just kind of thought it was interesting that the funny guy actually was very serious and made a public service announcement for NASA, essentially saying, "Hey, NASA's good. Science is awesome."
Yeah, that's okay. Well, hey, that's great. That's always good.
Mm-hmm.
Colbert, I like the Colbert Report, so I have a soft spot for that, anyways.
Yeah,
and of course,
a lot of people do.
Link to that in the show notes, the full video. All right. Well, any other shout outs you want to give?
Yeah, the Curiosity rover. I've talked about it off and on a lot because I know I may or may not be biased towards Mars and everything about Mars.
Right.
But we are T-minus 6 months from it landing on the surface of Mars now.
Oh, man.
So, I know. It's getting closer.
It is. And stay on top of it because we are going to be talking about it when it does. I mean, oh my gosh. Maybe we should do... We're going to have... Of course, the whole episode will be about that.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right? Yeah, I mean, the whole episode. So in 6 months, we've already got our episode planned. Sweet.
Yes. SciByte 58, 2 days after the landing. Tune in to find out what happened.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, then you know what that means. It's time for our spacecraft update.
That was our
spacecraft update. Oh, man, I wanted to use the soundbite so bad.
Oh.
I know, I'd saved it up too. Sorry, it's because I skipped the doc. All right. I was just going free. I wasn't following the script. Well, then you have a mark in here for viewer feedback, but I don't see anything in here. So are we going to skip that this week?
No, it's there.
Oh, it is? Okay. Well, then let me tell people how to email us. You can send it into SciByte@jupiterbroadcasting.com or go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact and fill out the contact form, select SciByte in there, and then you can get your feedback sent to the show. You know what it is my Google Docs broke. That's why I wasn't following. I'll reload Google Docs. Why don't you take it and I'll get to Google Docs reloaded.
Okay. Yeah, I've had quite a few feedbacks and I'm really excited to see it. Some questions, some people pointing out stories. This time it was somebody kind of identifying to me that last week when I talked about, time travel from, favorite movie and such, and I talked about the twin brothers, one flying at the speed of light away from the Earth and coming back, and one was older. The twin paradox. I didn't quite go into that in enough detail, and I may have led people off the track of science into the lost forest of science. So,
say what? Were you hurting Mars? Were you hurting science? Were you?
I may have heard science
Heather.
a little. I heard science a little. All right. Now, and I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name because I probably will. The viewer Slepicus. Sorry for mispronouncing it. So he kind of pointed out this to me that maybe I needed to provide a little more detail, correct the science.
Okay.
So what it breaks down
to... forgiving. That is always a good thing.
Science. Yeah, it's okay. So time travels slightly different at the speed of light. So at any speed you travel, time is going to, go forward. It's going to be slightly different from the different speeds you travel. So at the speed of light, it's even greater. It also depends on your vantage point. This is one of those things that's really crazy. So let's go back to our twins. They shake hands. One gets on the rocket, flies at light speed away, and then comes back. Now what happens is that on Earth, the twin, say they could look at the same clock. He sees his clock going, and he sees the twins' clock going a little bit slower.
Okay.
They're thinking, they're going to come back, a lot, younger than I'm going to be. They're going to be aging slowly.
Okay, yeah.
Now, the weird thing comes in is why it's a paradox is because the twin on the rocket sees his time going by, and he also sees the twin back on Earth clock going slower.
And does his perspective of that change as he gets further away?
I don't think so. It's just if he's traveling at a constant speed of light travel.
Okay.
So he goes away at the speed of light, turns around, comes back at the speed of light. Mm-hmm. But it's sort of funny that both twins see the other clock clicking slower.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of a twisty, how does this work?
Matter of perspective.
It's all perspective. Too. There's gravitational time dilation that can happen where you have time passing at different rates depending on the gravitational potential where you are. The lower the gravitational gravity, the more slowly time passes. So
The more I hear about time, the more I think it's just all made up. The only thing that really exists is this moment right now, and everything else either doesn't exist yet or no longer exists. And that's just the way it is. And there is no future, then there is no past. And I know that's a bummer, and I know we can't really wrap our brains around it, but I think it's just what it is.
It's like
that's my take.
Any given moment of a fire. In the future, there's parts that aren't burned yet. In the past, there's ash. And in the middle, there's a fire. You can't go forward or back from that. There's no undoing it.
There it is. And when you're waiting, all you're doing is existing at the same time of the thing that you're waiting for. Think about that. That's weird, right?
Just doing it over and over again?
That is a very great feedback. I don't know what to say to that. It's a little mind blowing, but it's a great one.
Yeah, and again, I apologize, Slepicus, if I led people in a slightly different direction than you were participating in, but I have attempted to correct the science back on a proper path. And there are some videos in the show notes, and there's some links to some great places that explain it a lot better than I could in 10 minutes, or 5 minutes, or however long I've talked, or an hour.
And you know what? We're always open to following up again. I mean, science is an iterative process, and so is show production.
Yes.
So it's okay. We can honor both of them.
Yes.
All right. Well, then, I think we should probably jump over to the science. Oh, by the way, I want to mention a great cartoon that kind of demonstrates what Heather was talking about in the show notes for that, too. All right. Well, I think, are you ready to, here, come over here. We need to jump in the time machine. Let's go. Let's go.
Hold on.
Go. Come on. Okay.
Oh, no. Here we go. Hang on.
Oh, all right. Our first destination in the time machine takes us to 265 years ago, February 14th, 1747.
That's right. I call this one Earth Failing Sobriety Test.
Okay. All right.
So the Earth has a bit of a wobble, and from the moon. That's, it orbits the Earth and it kind of pulls it just a little bit. A small version of,
the sun is our yin and the moon is our yang, and they kind of both pull on us, right?
Yeah. Think of the exoplanets that we've discovered. They kind of wobble their star just a little. Like on a smaller scale, it still happens. The moon wobbles the Earth just a little. So a British astronomer discovered this, kind of wrote up a paper. It's called nutation. He first noticed it during some studies of parallax, which is when you see when a star is in slightly different positions. So on, you have the Earth on one side of the sun's orbit, and you look at a star. You look at two stars near each other. And then you go on the other side of the sun, you see them slightly different. It's like if you hold out your finger, about a foot and a half away from your face, close your right eye. You see it in one location. Now close your left. Now it's in a different spot. It depends on how you look. Yep. So it's that kind of a thing. Now he saw something else changing it, fluctuating this just slightly. And he thought it was probably the moon. Now he didn't announce that. He was very anti, very headline, big media.
Well, I've read in, from what little history I do know from that period, there's a lot of scientists who were a little nervous to just put their findings out there because sometimes they get in a lot of trouble if it was something that went against the mainstream beliefs. So there's a lot of people that are trepidatious about that kind of announcing big discoveries like that until they were very, very positive about them.
No, I think this guy just wanted to make sure. I mean, it could be part of that, and he wanted to make sure that that he had enough scientific data to absolutely prove this.
So that way when people took and run with it, it wasn't some sort of mistake.
Yeah. Now,
that's a respectable thing to do.
And took a little over 18 and a half years of data to put together to prove this before he actually published a paper about it.
Wow. That is some self-control. I have to be honest.
Very thorough.
Yeah.
Now, this guy also measured the diameter of Venus. He was able to make calculations on the speed of light. So this guy was not very, he wasn't twiddling his thumbs in those 18 and a half years that he was, just gathering data to write a paper about how the moon wobbles the Earth.
Respect to James Bradley. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
There you go. All right.
There you go.
Should we talk about 71 years ago, February 12th, 1941?
That's right. Mold, certain types of mold become our friend. The first injection of penicillin into a human subject was conducted. Who who developed this an antibiotic version of this. So they're working. So this pair of scientists are working together for a medical application, but they were really scared about testing it on humans. They're like, we don't know what's going to happen. So they're working in this hospital, and they were made aware of a guy who had septic scratches, blood poisoning, abscesses. Essentially, his days were numbered.
Yeah,
because they had no way to treat it. Yeah, and so they came down. They're like, okay, well, are you willing to try something? Yeah, sure, go for it. So they injected him with penicillin, and immediately his fever started going down. He was hungry. His appetite returned. And he's immediately started getting better.
What a miracle they must have thought they'd come across. He goes from near almost sure death to recovering.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people may remember the story of, Alexander Fleming, the guy who discovered it, where he accidentally leaves a dirty. It's not like they actually threw something at the wall. It's just that he left a petri dish out that was dirty. And then he came back, a couple of days later, it's just, kind of like leaving a plate out and coming days later, a couple days later, you're going, there's little civilizations there.
Yeah. Now, usually it's, yuck.
Yeah. For him, it was, it wasn't so much yuck. Now, what's funny is he didn't really think it was going to do much. He didn't think it would last in the human body long enough to kill bacteria. He just thought, cool antiseptic. And just kind of moved on. And it was a couple years before other people started really analyzing it and looking at it before medical applications.
That's actually a completely reasonable assumption. You think the stomach acid, or you think about the immune system. I mean, you kind of hope that it wouldn't survive very long in the body.
Yeah. So you're like, I don't think it's really going to do much. It's got a lot to fight against.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I found really interesting when I was looking this up is that, everyone thinks, well, that's when it first came up. But the use of bread with blue mold, which we kind of assumed to be penicillin based on history, was a means of treating wounds that had been infected as a folk medicine in Europe since the Middle Ages. This is another one of those things where, it's a folk remedy or something that just works. You get some blue mold on
snake oil a while ago.
Yeah, that's right. You get some blue mold on a piece of bread. Here, eat this. Okay. They made it slightly more palatable by, injecting it now. Or eating it in pill form. Slightly easier to get down than moldy bread.
Yeah. All right, well, why don't we go to 22 years ago, February 13th, 1990.
That's right. The solar system set up for a family photo. Voyager 1, we've talked about them before, heading out to, Voyager 1 and 2 are getting near the edge of the, solar system. They're getting ready to enter interstellar space. But Voyager 1 was heading out to the edge of the solar system, turned around and took 4 hours to take a series of photographs looking back into the solar system. They got the sun and 6 different planets. And they were able to, NASA and scientists were able to piece together and kind of tape together them all of these ones in a nice long little zigzag and say, here are 6 planets in the sun. Combining 60 images to do this.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. And the sun looks like just kind of a bright star. The planets are just dots. Mercury was too close to be seen. Mars and Pluto were just too small to pick up. But it was the first record of the solar system from space like that. And it will probably remain the only one for decades to come.
Oh.
Now, if you remember, Voyager 2, you may not remember, Voyager 2 is the one that just went flat on the plane of the solar system. So, all the planets kind of sit on a plane like a plate or a saucer or something. And it just shot out across the side. Voyager 1 was able to loop under Saturn and shoot straight up, or mostly up. So about an angle of 32 degrees or so. So one kind of went up and one went to the side. And the one that went up is Voyager 1. That's the one that was able to kind of take a top-down picture of the solar system.
Makes sense. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. There's the history. Now it's time to look up into the sky.
That's right. Now, you may have seen, if you were in Texas per se, or possibly on the major media outlets as it's melting out, there is a YouTube video of a fireball over Texas. It's taken from Yeah, taken from a police dash cam. Now you'll see these occasionally pop up, where it's a really large fireball, meteorite falling, big and bright, and mostly these will come from police dash cams or security cameras, because those kind of things are just on a lot and all the time. So they're looking at various pieces of the sky, and they're mostly stable, and so anything that happens in that direction is going to get caught on video.
Yeah.
So that's why these kind of things are usually caught by those cameras.
There is already a big controversy, of course, around this. People think it's a UFO.
Oh.
Yeah, I seen that going on Reddit. They think it's a UFO that's being covered up, and so on and so forth. But
yeah,
I think that's just wishful thinking, to be honest.
Yeah, just maybe. I kind of thought about it earlier in my life, and I was like, everything in the air is sort of a UFO for a split second, as you look at it and decide what it is, because it's unidentified until you figure out what it is.
Yeah.
You're like, what is that? Oh, it's a frisbee coming right at my head. Thunk.
And unfortunately, there's a lot more rocks floating around up there than I'd like.
Yeah,
so it's
more
not
than
too
you want to
uncommon.
think about.
Not too uncommon for something to come down. No. And it doesn't have to be It doesn't have to be a UFO.
No, not every time.
No. What about what about like anything for the moon this week? I mean, come on, I always love it when you tell me X is underneath the moon. That kind of stuff.
Yes. Well, there are some planets, but first, the moons can actually have a halo, which is like a little moonbeam. There's rainbows during the daytime. The moon can actually have little ones. It happens when ice crystals are high in the clouds and catch the moonbeams coming in. They're able to bend them just slightly. The brighter the moon, the easier it is to see. So you'll kind of have this halo around the moon. Between the moon and that halo is a little bit darker, and outside of it is a little bit lighter. It has to do with how the light is bent in various directions to get. And sometimes when you see that little halo, you can actually make out a little bit of color. You can kind of see a very, very faded rainbow sometimes. You can try to take a picture of this, but be ready to just have a fuzzy moon.
Yeah, no, you can't, can you?
It's really hard.
You got to see it in person. And it's always a winter thing.
Yeah, it is a winter because it's formed by ice crystals. Now, these things can have photos taken of them. It just sometimes requires just the right filter and just expensive enough of a camera.
Yeah,
I've attempted to take pictures of these before, and I'm like, oh, my little budget camera or Christmas camera. It's okay, camera. I love you anyway.
It tries. It really does try.
It does a good job.
It's not designed to take pictures of space objects.
Yeah, the moon is a hard object to take a picture of just because it's a really bright object against the dark. And it's just, cameras don't particularly like that a lot.
And there's no way your flash is going to reach to the moon to light up the moon. So the only thing the flash will do is light up your yard around it. So everything around your camera will show up in the picture.
Yep. You'll see a nice, clearly defined tree.
Or a fence.
Or the side of your house. Or your fence.
Yeah.
And then a big fuzzball in the sky. You'll be like, that's the moon.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah. No, I think
you might be able to.
The route I think if I was ever going to be serious about it, I think the route I'd try would be hooked up to a telescope.
Yeah, that'd probably be the best idea. Although that's going to get a close-up of the moon. You'd have to have a wide-angle, smaller telescope to be able to see wide enough. Yeah, to get the halo, because you need a wide enough field of view.
True.
So there are some little ones that are of that nature, and we've talked about before, or may not have, that there are things that you can plug into the eyepiece of the telescope and kind of link it to your computer. So you could take pictures that way. But it does take just the right type of telescope in just the right kind of conditions.
Probably not a cheap telescope either if it can take pictures like that.
The ones that were like that aren't very powerful. They're more wide field of view. So those are actually not that expensive.
Well, what's not
depending
that
on which
expensive?
Like I don't recall.
$500?
I don't recall their cost on the top of my head. I just know that they are generally cheaper than a normal telescope. It's just finding them maybe a little difficult. The one I recall is it's just like a big red ball, and then it has like a little tube sticking out of it.
We did a SciByte on picking the right telescope.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's where I got the eyepiece camera hooked to your laptop.
There you go. So people can check JupiterBroadcasting.com for that. Because I noticed Rock Me Amadeus in the chat room was saying that he'd like a telescope powered by a computer. He can check that episode out.
Yes, you can.
Maybe we could do like an updated version when it comes time to like around the holidays again.
Yeah, on the holidays we can do a general astronomy and science.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm down for that.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
All right.
Now the
What
part
else is
that
up in the sky?
Now the part that you really like, the
Yeah.
planets.
Yeah.
So Venus is going to be high in the southwest sky as, in the evenings all this month.
Okay.
So we get to see Venus a lot. On the Wednesday, February the 8th, look to the east in the evening, so away from where the sun is setting. You'll see the moon, and it's to its lower left near the horizon will be Mars.
Oh,
I
cool.
like that.
Yeah.
On Thursday, the 9th, Uranus will actually be just a little to the left of Venus right after dark. And Mars will be to the upper left of the moon now. So it's a little bit higher and a little bit easier to see.
So Thursday after I shoot TechSnap. Okay, got it. That's always hard to remember.
Okay. Mars will be to the upper left of the moon. Okay, Friday, February the 10th, Jupiter, our wonderful planet and namesake on this broadcast place, and Venus are going to be about 3/5 apart. So if you hold your arm out, measure about 3/5 apart, and they'll be narrowing the gap between them. So they'll be getting closer and closer until March the 13th.
Oh, okay. I'm practicing right now. I can do it. I can handle that.
Yeah. Tell me, everyone who's holding your arm out, a little fist, because I'm doing it too. That far.
Yeah, it's a good exercise. Okay. Right there and then right there. Okay, I got it.
Yep.
Cool. I always love when I get a little peek at Jupiter. So,
yes.
All right. So that is all the way until March 13th, too. So that's a pretty good chance for everybody to go out there and put their fists up in the sky.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it won't be, it'll be getting less and less than 3/5. So maybe you just have to do, 2 fist bumps to the sky.
Oh, okay. Okay. Don't want to get people confused. Well, Heather,
Yeah.
I think that's just about the end of the show right there. I think we just about did it.
I think so.
Now, just a reminder.
Science.
Yeah, that was the science right there. Now, just a reminder, we will not be live on Tuesday next week. We will be live on Monday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. Pacific over at jblive.tv. And, of course, I encourage you to go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and grab the show notes and subscribe to an RSS feed and get the show weekly, just right there. Heather, another great show.
Another great science.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you right back here next week.